all grown up, so mom going out of town means I had to make 14 packets of coffee with the everything that goes in it so that my husband can have coffee every morning. And he does 2 cups of coffee every morning, so
What?
that's because he doesn't know how to make his own coffee. So anyway, I'm turning the mic over to you, Dove, Sharon,
And
Lorri. This mic is all yours.
what is the stated purpose of the meeting?
Of our meeting?
No, no, the one in Scotland.
There is no stated purpose.
There's no stated purpose, huh?
No,
Okay.
nothing planned, no schedule, no nothing. So other than we're meeting together on, one day and who knows what we'll do the rest. So,
Okay.
all right. So turn the mic over to you guys and thank y'all for being here.
Okay, I will start with Ken's journey through the workbook. And good morning, Dove. And I already said good morning to Sharon and Lynn, and good morning to anyone else who's out there. Today's lesson is 243. This day is God's. It is my gift to him. But I'm going to go with 242. I mean, did I say? I think I said that wrong. Today's lesson is 242. This day is God's. It is my gift to him. But I'm going to read 243. Today I will judge nothing that occurs, because that one speaks to me more, and I think it's misunderstood by a lot of people. So Ken starts out by saying, today I will judge nothing that occurs. This key statement logically follows from the preceding lesson. We judge everything based on the insanely arrogant premise that we know. How could we? Central to A Course in Miracles is the fact that we cannot judge anything. That is the Holy Spirit's function, not ours. So a couple things about that. When Jesus said in the New Testament, judge not, that ye be not judged, judging is of the thinking mind. So judging is always based on the past, things that we think we know. But A Course in Miracles tells us there is no past, there is no world, there are no bodies. And so when we are judging, we are in the thinking mind, we are in the body, we are using the brain, and the brain has to judge. So a lot of people get into this thing of, oh, I'm judging, I shouldn't judge. Well, guess what? You're going to. The brain is always doing that. But when we are on to the brain and the ego's games, and we know, oh, all of those don't mean anything, the judging voice, the ego voice, gets quieter. And that is the space of truth. That's the space of God's presence. That's the now moment. And you can't be in the now moment when you're thinking. You just can't. The mind has to be quiet. And we've always heard that, silence, stillness, be still and know that I am God. But it's very hard to do in the sense of, well, one, you're not doing anything, but it's hard because the mind is always reeling, thinking. So when it says don't judge, a lot of people take that as, oh, I'm thinking bad thoughts about another person, I shouldn't do that. That's part of it. But the whole thing is actually way broader than that. It is about not thinking at all, not using the critical mind, which we have to use to function here. We have to know that you go on green lights and you stop on red lights. We have to know that you get enough sleep for the body, even though the Course says once we get to a place where we're awake, sleep is not as important, or we're not based on whether we get enough sleep or not, our functioning. But when we are here, we need to use the ego, we need to use thinking, of course, but we need to also know that that is not who we are, that we're not the thinking brain, we're not the judging brain. But don't try so hard to stop thinking and stop judging, because you're going to, because that is the function of the brain. This frontal cortex is all about organizing, planning, structuring, figuring out the world. And if you look at children and their development of their brains, they start figuring things out. Oh, this is how I climb this. This is how I do this. This is how I get what I want. And that's what we have to do here. And as course students, we want to know that that is just the function of the brain. It is a judging function. It is a thinking function, and we don't have to believe it. So when we have thoughts about other people, he's good, she's bad, I like this, I don't like that, those are going to happen. But we want to make sure that we don't believe those thoughts. So again, back to this title, today I will judge nothing that occurs. And hi, Mickey. We want to make sure that we're thinking that we know that nothing that occurs is real. So all the things that are happening in the world, they're not really happening. They're in a dream. Okay, so this lesson can meet you wherever you're at. That's what I love about the course. So if you still believe in a world, you can take this lesson and say, oh, I'm not going to judge it. I have no idea. I don't know who should be president. I don't know what the outcome is that should happen. That's the first level. Okay, stop believing your thoughts. Second level, well, let me back up a little bit. If you say, I don't know who should be president, I don't know what this person should do with their life or whatever, I don't even know what I should do with my life. That's one level, but you're still believing in the world and you're still believing in thoughts. Another level is to go, none of these thoughts are real. And then going a further level is, I will judge nothing that occurs. Nothing is happening. So there's all these different levels where the course is going to meet you where you're at. So when it says, today I will judge nothing that occurs, on the more advanced levels, it's actually about knowing that you're dreaming, that nothing is occurring except all these thoughts and fantasies in your mind. There's nothing out there. And so, again, you can take this lesson at whatever place you're at and apply it. But the ultimate is nothing is occurring. So it says, today I will judge nothing that occurs. Well, that's because nothing is occurring except these fantasies in your mind. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon.
That was great, Lorri. That was really great. I love what you said about everything that you just said. Was just the judging part of us. Unless there's no ego, you're going to always judge because the mind doesn't know anything else. And what I've seen now is that any thought is separation, because there are no thoughts in heaven. So as we go through, the process, we realize that we were never judging, because we're not the ego. We were never judging. And and last night I fell into like a conversation in my head where I had taken my granddaughter, she's going to be 16, to a friend's because she moved here. My grandson and her moved here. And she's uncomfortable and she has all these, different stuff that she's wanting to get in school and everything. But friends for her, she's very selective. I mean, she really kind of shocks me. Her ego shocks me because she's like, I don't want to go. She's a beautiful girl. And she says, I don't want to go, Grandma, with people that smoke pot or smoke cigarettes or have boyfriends. I don't need that. I want to do good in school. So when she went over there last night, she said she had a good time and they were nice, but she feels awkward. And I watched my mind and I was falling into my mind being that's me. That's my granddaughter. That's my story. And that is not me and is not my story. Yes, in the dream it is. And when I make it real, I become like the mother that I was with my boys, where I'm protective. So as we're at my friend's house last night, the ego was just like saying, well, why doesn't Sarah just talk, blah, 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 blah. And when I got home, I went, I really, really see more than ever how uncomfortable the ego is. Because really through the day, I'm not always in the wrong mind. The wrong mind is not a place that we want to stay, because it's a place of judgment and it's very tiring. So I also had a thing happen yesterday where I went to get my hearing checked, and I am getting hearing aids now. So, because I have auto processing, which is something, you get from a traumatized birth, but as I age, I don't hear that well. So it's more like the woman was explaining, my brain and my hearing are connected. And I just took that with grace because it's Sharon that has those hearing aids. if I really want to look at everything, I am witnessing the world, and the world is still. There's nothing here but objects, right? But you wouldn't know that if when I fall asleep again, because I was in that mind last night. And what I realized, and I turned today, is in Ken's book, What is the World? He writes, recall the important principle ideas leave not their source. Do you know, anytime I would say that, anytime my mind would stop. Because the right mind knew by then, like when my son wasn't doing well in his disease, it was hard for me, but I couldn't stop like the grieving. And what I would do is, well, Sharon, ideas didn't leave their source, and right away the mind would just stop. And that's pretty much why this course is so magnificent, because it's teaching the right mind knows the right mind, but now it also knows this course, because that's who wrote it, right? It's not written from the ego, just is a separation thing. So what Ken was saying is it's all false perception. So it says, you do not realize, now this is in text chapter 18, the magnitude of that one error, the substitution of illusion for truth. It was so vast and so completely incredible that from it a world of total unreality had to emerge. What else could come of it? That was the first projection of error outward. The world arose to hide it and became the screen on which it was projected and drawn between you and truth. Do you really think it's strange that in a world in which everything is backwards and upside down arose from the projection of an error? It was inevitable. So what he's saying after that, Ken, this was the course. This is a crucial concept in A Course in Miracles thought system, for it is the basis of its non-dualistic metaphysics on which true forgiveness rests. An illusory thought engenders an illusory world, which, when forgiven, disappears back into its own nothingness. So the silence and the right-mindedness is right here, right now. That's the space. And, you know, our Father is here. Like, we know that we're taken care of, but the person, I used to have a lot, and I still do. I had a lot of like, you know, fears in the body. You know, this could happen and that could happen. And honestly, you cannot understand this process if you still think you're that character, because the character is always in duality, and that's just the law of opposites. It's just the way it is. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. Change your mind about your separation from God, and the world must change accordingly. Now, Ken's writing this. Earlier, I quoted from the following passage in Psychotherapy, where Jesus discusses how the bodily world of sickness and death arose as shadows from the mind's thought of guilt. Once God's Son is seen as guilty, illness becomes inevitable. Now, that's a body. As soon as you're in this body, you're in guilt, because that's what it was made from. This is an attack on our Father. This is an attack on everything. So to just say, okay, stop, drop, and pray, and that was Vicky Poppy's, you know, thing when she would have an ego thought, stop, drop, to the, you know, just drop into yourself and just pray, Father, I'm here to only be truly helpful. And, you know, my ego was out last night, or our ego, because there's only one ego, was talking and yapping about, I hope my granddaughter does well today. I hope my grandson does well, and all of this stuff. And I think, oh my God, I'm still doing that. I'm getting into story. Well, that's not true. Because the reality here is that I've never been this story. I appeared to be the story, but it's a dream, and a dream is ephemeral. There's nothing there. But belief makes us believe that this is our home, this is real, and it means something. And that's the trap for all humans. Like, you know, I don't want him to ruin my life. I don't want to lose everything in my life. I'm this old and I need to get that. And this is how we have been conditioned. So the conditioning for this mind has relaxed quite a bit. At least when I do listen to the ego, which I did last night, it's an uncomfortable feeling. It's not that space of grace that we all are. That's what we are. We're grace. And the only time that you ever are with spirit is in the now, because everything else is nothing. So it's just, and all it is a reflection. Heaven is here, right now. Okay, over to you, Doug.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Sharon. And this section that we're going through right now starts off with what is the world? And when you read even the very first paragraph of this, you're given an opportunity to see why we don't know what anything is for, because we think the world is real. Starts off, the world is false perception. It's born of error and has not left its source. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave its birth is cherished. When the thought of separation has been changed to one of true forgiveness, will the world be seen in quite another light. So all the lessons that follow, and you did 243, Lorri, which I understand today will judge nothing that occurred, mainly because the Son of God was never given the ability to judge. He's using the ego's mind that chooses one or the other, which Ken Wapnick calls sacrifice. And I think sacrifice is used 1,000 times in this course. And sacrifice remains the one root cause of all blame, shame, guilt, lack, loss, poverty, starvation, and even death. It tells you that in lesson 187. I bless the world because I bless myself. In paragraph 6, those who understand what true giving means must laugh at all the things in this world that tell you that there's something to be afraid of, something to lose, something to be afraid of death, because none of this is true. It's just an error of the mind that was born in error. Forgiveness shows that there's nothing to choose from. We are one, whereas our perception is I can choose one over the other. You did the Ken Wapnick commentary on 243. I'll do today's lesson 242. I'll put it up here in the chat. It says, "This day is God's. It's my gift to Him." And in this commentary, which I'm about to read, he actually tells you that we don't know what anything is for. That basically we think that we're right at the expense of someone else being wrong. Basically, God is wrong, I'm right. Even when we think we're good students of A Course in Miracles, always asking for help, we inevitably fall back on the belief that we know what's right and wrong, best and worst for us. Thus, Jesus tells us here, as he does throughout the course, that we do not understand anything about the world. This is the humility he encouraged us to maintain, and that's by Ken Wapnick. So, basically, like my mantra, lesson 25, I do not know what anything is for. You finally get to the place where you realize that as good a student as you think you are, you really know nothing, because everything that you know has to do with what you're looking at, and this world is not real. I just saw recently one of the avant-garde scientists is saying that the world is a computer simulation. That sounds perfect. I mean, that's the same thing as artificial intelligence. And here we are at the beginning of the era of artificial intelligence, and they're telling us the whole world is going to change, coming into a whole new generation where nothing is as it appears. Nothing is as it appears. Everything is simulated. It's artificial. I mean, 50 years ago, they started talking about virtual reality, that this is virtual reality. So you really got to laugh at the things that we think that we know what's right and wrong. There is no right and wrong. I mean, that is why I love that line in the course. Do you want to be right? or do you want to be happy? Choose one. You can't have both. Really? What can't I have both? That's it for me. Over to you, Lorri.
Thank you, Doug. And let's see, Mickey, you have your hand up, so I'll let you speak.
Hi. I just wanted to thank you, Lorri, because you said something before that was really uplifting for me. And correct me, because I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was something to the effect of we can't judge, only the ego is judging. And so every time we do judge, if we say, and I can't remember what you said, that's silly or that's nothing, or do you remember?
I don't really remember exactly.
Yeah, I know. I never remember what I've said.
Like that. It had to be something like that, that those thoughts don't mean anything.
Yeah,
or not even
those thoughts don't mean anything. But the key thing that you said was if we say that, if we look at the judgment and don't give it credence and say that's nothing and just kind of go, it becomes quieter. And that gives me hope that eventually it's going to shut the F up. That someday, and maybe it won't happen this lifetime, but I keep biting at that bait. I keep grabbing onto that hook, for a second or for however long, or sometimes it's for days, it can be weeks, on one little thing. But if I could just keep in my mind, that's nothing. The ego cannot judge. It's not capable of it. And until I am 100% egoless, the thing I think I am is going to judge. Why am I believing it? Why am I listening to it? Why am I giving it any of my attention? It's a little frustrating at this point because I know just enough to make myself crazy. I know just enough to know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm still buying it a little bit. There's still enough ego left that it grabs me just a little. But so anyway, I wanted to thank you for saying that because it just reinforced, okay, if I can just hold on, if I could just hold Holy Spirit's hand, and Ken Wapnick said something once that gave me an image. He didn't say it this way, but it gave me the image of there I am, like a little girl skipping down the street, la-di-da-di-da. You know how your parents would hold both your hands, and they would swing you up in the air. And there I am trying to hold on to both Holy Spirit's and ego's hands, and you can't. You have to let go of one of them. And if I could just let go of ego's hand and grab onto Holy Spirit's, when those thoughts come in, I can say, you don't mean anything, and hopefully ego will not hold out its hand that much anymore, or I won't grab onto it, or I won't pay it enough attention, and it'll get bored and go away. I'm counting on it just getting bored with me and saying, well, she's not giving me enough attention. I'm going to go somewhere else. Wishful thinking. Anyway, thank you for that. It was very helpful.
Yeah. And that's such a great example of what we were talking about the different levels. So while we still think we're a person who can hold this Holy Spirit's hand, that's very helpful. When we get the awareness of, oh man, those thoughts don't mean anything, then we can take them all and just go treat their illusion and go, oh, I've never done anything wrong, and I don't have to struggle really hard to hold this Holy Spirit's hand because it's all not even happening. And when you do that enough, like you said, when you do that enough, the ego voice gets quieter, and you just get into the stillness, like what you were saying, Sharon, about, when you said ideas leave not their source, and then the mind goes quiet. Because when you say that enough, like a million times, something shifts and something happens. And I compare it to like a teeter-totter, where finally, you're up, and you stay up, and you don't do this constant that we tend to do, because your identity has become much more stabilized in truth, that I am as God created me. And that lesson is really cool, because it says, this will mean much more to you as you advance. And that has been my experience, so that this thought, I am as God created me, it says this thought would save the world, this one thought. And when I go to that, that's when my mind becomes quiet or still, or there's so many different things I say from the course, all of them, the mind gets quiet, and it's like, yes, oh, thank God that all the things I think I did or think I was never happened, and they aren't real. And I don't have to judge anyone. And that's where, when it says, today I will judge nothing that occurs, well, that's when you get to go, well, it's all a dream. And if I'm not judging myself, I'm not going to judge anybody else. And it's just freedom. It's such freedom. And I know what you're saying, Mickey, about taking the bait, because those thoughts will get in there. And Sharon, I was so glad you said, you caught yourself saying my granddaughter, which I catch myself with my grandkids too. But that they've been such teachers for me to just let go and go, they're just figures in the dream. And, taking that bait. And politics right now is just, it's maddening. It's so funny. You can laugh at it though, too, because you see these ads on TV, and one will say, oh, they're this, they do this. And then right after that, there's an ad that says the exact opposite thing, that they don't do this. And it's just ridiculous. So I wanted to read from the end of the lesson, 243. Today I will judge nothing that occurs. It says, Father, today I leave creation free to be itself. I honor all its parts, in which I am included. We are one because each part contains your memory, and truth must shine in all of us as one. And that gets back to what you were saying, Sharon, that there's no objects out there. So a lot of people take this lesson to say, oh, I'm just going to see everything as beautiful and wonderful. It's all God's creation, and I'm not going to judge any of it. And of course, if you're at that level where you're still making the world real, you're still making bodies real, and believing that they have an objective existence outside of your mind, outside of your mind's fantasies, then that's a helpful thought, to not judge. But what it really means is there's nothing out there. And one of my friends who has dropped his body now, he said to me, he goes, the minute you see, he goes, so you see trees and you see Christ in everything, and you see a tree or you see nature, he goes, but the minute you call it a tree, you've gone into your mind, and you've gone into labeling, and you've made it an object outside of you, and you've lost it. So it's like what you were saying, Sharon, there's nothing but objects, and yet even the objects aren't there. But the minute we start categorizing, judging them with our frontal cortex here about, oh, that's a tree, and that's an oak tree, and that's a maple tree, and that's a beech tree, and we start categorizing just like we categorize every person and everything, we've lost it. And again, not that we can't do that, because we have to do that here. If we want to plant a maple tree in our backyard and not an oak tree, there's nothing wrong with that. But the awareness of that we are dreaming. Oh, I'm dreaming of planting a maple tree. I'm dreaming that the maple tree is different than an oak tree. I'm dreaming that there's even a tree. Those types of things stay in our awareness. And that's the peace that I see us all getting to. The peace that you have, Sharon, the peace that you have, Doug, and that I have. I just can't believe it. So I've decided for the rest of this political season, and probably hopefully even after, I'm not talking about politics anymore. I'm not, because I lose my peace. And when I thought there was hope, when I thought that my candidate was actually an alternative, a real alternative to the two parties, I was speaking up. Well, that's not there anymore. And I cried. I cried when Kennedy dropped out. I cried a number of times. I felt depressed for a little while. And then it's like, whoa, why? Because I made a special relationship. I thought something in the world might actually fix the world. Nope, not happening, not going to happen. So now I'm pulling out, and it's like, thank you for dropping out so I could drop out. So we get our prayers answered. And I was talking to a client of mine last night. He's talking about, oh, I feel hopeless because my prayers have never been answered. And I said, well, what is the prayer of your heart? And he goes, that I be awake. I said, so yeah, your prayers have been answered because you're still doing that. You are still waking up. And he's like, yeah, if I hadn't had the illusion of my kids being gone from me, not having money and all these things that in the world that would have kept me stuck in the world, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. And so it's like, yeah, your prayer is being answered, because the true prayer of heart is to be awake. Yeah, I know, Lynn, and that disturbed me quite a bit. That I understand. You said Kennedy, you put it in the chat, Kennedy is backing Trump. He's a very confused person. You know, I understand why he is backing Trump, and I'll tell you why. Because if you listen to his concession or whatever, he was dropping out, there's a lot of reasons that make a lot of sense, because there was no democratic process with the Democratic Party. Nobody else was allowed to be on the ballot. They kept people off the ballot, and they also kept everyone off of debates. So this is not just Kennedy, this is Williamson too. So they kept people off the ballot, and there was no democratic process. Now, I agree. I don't agree with Kennedy's thing to go with Trump, because I think Trump has I don't trust Trump as far as you can throw him. I think maybe he's giving him promises, but for Kennedy, he is so near and dear to his heart that he wants to help children and help them get healthy and get the chemicals and poisons out of our food system and everything, so that he feels his only hope. He says, I can't do it in the Democratic Party because they've kicked me out. My only hope for doing this is with Trump, and that's why I'm doing it. So I don't think it's confusion. I think he thinks his special relationship is children and food and health and not having allergies and stuff like that and chronic diseases. So I think he's very sincere. I think, though, that trusting Trump is probably not real wise. It was very interesting to watch Marianne Williamson's reaction to Bobby Kennedy's stepping down. But if you notice, that's the only time anybody has ever listened to Bobby Kennedy, is when he finally quit. And now everyone listened to him and gave him voice. It's just, there's a lot of crap. Yeah, he thinks Trump will honor his ideas, and I don't trust that at all. But again, here I said that I wouldn't talk about politics, but when I can talk about them as far as giving information in a loving way, I will add, I decided, okay, I will add information. And then Marianne Williamson, her response to Kennedy was, he called out the press. He said, you didn't do your job. You didn't do fair and equitable letting people know what was out there. And she goes, he's right. He goes, they did the same thing to me. They wouldn't let her speak. They wouldn't give her voice. He pointed out that when Ross Perot ran, he had 34 interviews, with that being the mainstream media, ABC, NBC, CBS, right? He had 2 interviews in a year and a half with all of the media because they would not let him speak. And for me, when I listen to him, he makes a lot of sense. I don't agree with everything, but so he had some really good points. So as far as him being confused, I don't think it's so much confusion as he wants really strongly to do this thing for children and children's health and the chronic diseases. And he also said that we spend more money on our health care, and he said triple, and I don't know about his figures, I don't know, triple the amount in the health care and for these diseases that we do in our military. and that this is a huge, huge drain on our economic system. And that's where he believes the focus should go. Personally, I think it should go to climate change. But so he's on that. So he makes sense. I don't think he's confused, and I don't think he's crazy. And I think that it has saddened me when my friends go, oh, he's just a lunatic. He's a spoiled rich brat. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You're just believing all this damning stuff that the mainstream media wanted to paint him as this lunatic. And if you just actually listen to him and don't listen to the opinions, like these ads, one ad, this ad, it's crazy. So anyway, I'm done. I'm done on that. But Dove, you brought up something about lesson 187. And I just recently read something. That lesson is, I bless the world because I bless myself. And I was reading this book that talked about the root word for blessing and blood are the same in this Anglo-Saxon etymology. And that blessings often were felt like you couldn't have a blessing unless you had a blood sacrifice. So when I read that, I thought, oh, I wonder if Jesus knew that. And that's why he did lesson 187. I bless the world because I bless myself. And then all in that lesson, it's all about sacrifice and not believing in sacrifice. And I always thought that that was kind of odd. Why is I bless the world because I bless myself talking about sacrifice? But then when I saw that those words, blood and blessing, were from the same root word, I thought, oh, Jesus probably knew that. So I'm going to turn this over to you now, Sharon.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so I didn't listen to Kennedy much, but I think it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to, because that's all, it's out of our control. What I find, Lorri, is that I too don't do well with the political scene, because it's almost like you're addicted to the whole story, and it's a way to enliven the ego. You want to be right. You believe the world can give you something. And it's all about that. So for me now, I see that it's very combative. There are people that see things in Donald Trump that I don't see, but that's their filter. The filter decides, not the person. There are no people. It's mind that's doing this. And I think what I do, I forget that I'm mind, I'm not body. Because if we really knew we were mind, we wouldn't want any of this. But there's an attraction, or there's a conditioning to the guilt. And also there's a conditioning. Guilt brings on a being right. You know, we want to be right. We want to believe that we know. And that's the problem, because you don't know anything in an ego, because you're looking at your own thoughts. And they're always about you. So when I don't like a candidate, I'm really saying, I am arrogant. I am hateful. I am, because it always comes back to the mind of the dreamer. And it's kind of important for me to just say that, because I actually can see how the ego gets excited if it thinks that my candidate might win, you know. Look, let's face it, everybody wants love in this world. And we want everything to be perfect. We don't really. Ken Wapnick is so right. I didn't want to wake up. I just wanted a better ego. I just wanted a better life. There is no life here. The life is in the space. That's life awareness. It's kind of, calling ourselves out for falling down into the rabbit hole doesn't mean anything either. Because there's no ego. This is a dream, just like I had last night, and I don't remember any of it. And I don't know, people talk about different lifetimes. I don't know that lifetimes are going to happen to the DNA. I think it happens as the ACIM, but I can't imagine you're not even there. This is all part of the Big Bang. It happened in a moment, in a split nanosecond, that this world blew out, and there's a part I shouldn't say we, it's me. I sometimes think I can get something here. I want to know, like with my granddaughter last night, I became very maternal. And that's happened to me before, because What is a maternal person? Very protective, wanting her to really be happy. All the things that I know don't work. And that's the whole point. But if you know that they're the Christ, if you know that they're safe, and if you know that you, meaning Sharon, I am not the ego because I'm real. I am the real. The ego is a character. So to get into a fight over the election just doesn't interest me. Because there's some very nice people on both sides. You know that I had a strong conviction the last time. And by the way, I might love everybody as the Christ, but I don't like Donald Trump. You know that. But that doesn't mean that I have to talk about him, because then I'm just giving myself hatred, right? I mean, what does that mean like? It's Sharon that doesn't like him. So is it really my business that she doesn't like him? Because I am the awareness that's just saying nothing happened. I'm spirit, right? So Ken writes, when you accept the atonement for yourself, there is literally no world for you. See, that commitment has to be done daily. And I loved what Mickey was sharing, because I too have the same things come up. Like, I just wish the mind would just shut up. Well, it has to go away to shut up. But what I can do is not be so attracted to them and believe they have something to give me, because there's nothing to get. So I'm talking to myself always. There is nothing out there to get. Just one more time, I just want him to win, or I just want this to happen, or and I too feel at times like, this is when I came home last night, took a while to settle into going to sleep. And my mind was just talking to itself. When I think that the ego is talking and it's me, no, it's talking to itself. It's an insane mind that doesn't know anything, And yes, just like Mickey, I wanted sometimes to shut the F up, because it's like, it's an arrogant thing, but to be quiet and to stay in that silence takes practice. Because our jumping gene, I'm in the present moment now. Can I just sit here? Well, the ego has to relax. And I do feel at this time in my process that my ego is it's thinned out quite a bit. I just had a belief that I would maybe not have it anymore. And I don't know if that's possible. Anyway, people may still remain asleep and believe the world exists. And they may think they see you as a body, as they believe they saw Jesus as a body. But your reality remains with his outside the dream. So you're always with Christ. You're always with Jesus, right? Thus, looking at the dream, you realize everything you see is made up, similar to lucid dreamers who are aware they are dreaming. And we really are aware at this point. Now, when I come into gather, I realize everything. I'm in peace. I'm listening to the right mind. And that's really what I need to come back to, because what am I gaining? It's not like I, Sharon, it's the being right now that is thinning out. And it was never anything but the God's infinite being, but it didn't realize that, because it believed in the beliefs, and that's all this is. It's just belief. So how important is it is really how important is the ego really? Yes, we do need it for a lot of, it's a good servant, but that's what it needs to be, just a servant. So, because yes, you need it to go stop at a red light, you need to learn how to cook, all this stuff. However, the right mind is here, and there is nothing that you can do until the ego gets tired and balanced out. And I don't know, maybe there are people walking this earth that say they don't have an ego, but I know that my ego is still there. So anyway, it says, how could one take seriously what goes on here? For instance, you may dream of being attacked by someone in China, but knowing you were dreaming, you realize you're not in China and are being attacked by no one. Now, that's really the truth. Like, my friend's moving. So she said, well, I hope it's good there. And really, I thought came up, well, she's streaming. So she's still in God's mind. We're still in heaven, really, right? So, it's kind of like, he says, for instance, like, You may, I read this before, but for instance, you may dream of being attacked by someone in China, but you know it's a dream. You realize you're not in China and are being attacked by no one. This is how ridiculous this is. Hi, Zuma and Mickey and everyone. Anyway, so it's kind of like give up. Don't be, I find that the character I play likes to talk about herself. I mean, do you realize that we talk about ourselves all day long in our head? That's what the ego is doing. It's talking about the me that doesn't exist. And it's making amount, just a crazy, it's insane. It's an absolute insane mind. And I don't even know how I lived, thinking I was that mind all along. I mean, the 12 steps helped quiet the mind. Now I am in stillness and it's a lot quieter than ever, but it's still there. And it might always be there, but what has to stop is me telling my story. Who cares what my story is? That's just me not wanting. It's everything that Ken Wapnick says is true when he says you don't really want this. You want to live in the world, but you want to be happy. And that is true. But now that I see more and more what it does to me, and I love me now, me with a capital M, not the character, because you can't love a character. I want to just let it all go. I don't want to be hateful. Last election, I was downright hateful. And that is not, but it was my hatred. That's the whole thing. It's never about anyone else. So it's kind of like you got to get firm with the story. And living with my husband, who is very drawn to this whole political scene, I become drawn because that's what we have in common. He doesn't want to talk about A Course in Miracles. But in any case, it says, it is from the perspective that A Course in Miracles comes to us. It is written in the language of the world, but truth rests beyond it. It's so true. You appreciate, understand, and apply it only to the extent to which you can leave the world behind by stepping with Jesus outside it. We're not alone. We're with Jesus. Jesus is love. He's a thought of love. There was never a Jesus either. Jesus is a story like Sharon is a story like Dove, Lorri, Zuma, Mickey, Lynn. It's all just story. And then the big question is, who would you be without your story? You'd be no thing. You'd be nothing. And that's an insult to the ego, but it's joy to the infinite self. Over to you, Doug.
That was pretty good, Sharon. Thank you so much. You brought up a couple of things that I had to look at. I heard you say, I don't know why people are for Donald Trump, but they see him through a different filter. Well, that's true. Absolutely true. But yet still half the country sees him through a filter that they choose him. You can ask yourself over and over, what is that filter that they're looking through? And of course, you can't see it through that filter because you already chose a filter. It came to me as you were speaking that even the idea that I can vote, didn't I just say in my last sharing, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Choose one, because you can't have both. To vote is definitely the definition of being right. My way of saying is better than their way of saying it. So if you take a look at, oh, well, I'm entitled to vote. Really? I don't think voting has anything to do with oneness. It certainly has to do with two-ness, with this world of duality, which is an artificial world. So every time I go to the voting booth and vote for anyone, I'm saying, I know what's good and I know what's right, and the other person is not good and not right. Really? I mean, there's a lot of ego there, Dove. Kind of reminds me of what I was reading here earlier from lesson 242, today's lesson. This day is God's. It's my gift to him. Jesus tells us here that as he does throughout the course, that we do not understand anything about this world. Yeah, but I'm going to still vote because I have the right to vote, right? Yes, but I don't understand what I'm voting for. Well, I know what I'm voting for. I'm voting for climate change. I'm voting for you know, pollution, healthcare. Really? Really? You still think that you're a body, Dove? It goes on, Ken Webber goes on to say, we don't understand anything about this world. This is the humility he encourages us to maintain, humility. To be truly humble, I would probably say I have no need to vote. Voting is exactly how we got here, you know, one versus another. You know, I vote for A, but I deny B. That will certainly keep you stuck in a place that you don't want to be. You know, we talk about freedom and democracy. I'm voting for freedom. And, you know, I understand that people say, well, vote for country over party. Really? My country first. I mean, those are all epithets, you know, of the idea that I'm right and someone else is wrong. But you know, at the level of country, I mean, how could I be wrong? I mean, you know, I'm born here, right? I owe it to perpetuate democracy that so many people died for, right? Really? You don't really owe anything to something that doesn't really exist. The world does not really exist. The world doesn't exist and countries don't exist, bodies don't exist. But I keep perpetuating it by saying, I'm right, my vote counts. No, actually, you're voting for the ego, basically. That is what we're voting for. While I'm at it, I see Zuma joined us, and I want to mention Zuma that Regis played your song, the one that you do along with Jimmy. What's Jimmy's last name? It's a prayer song. Do you know the one I'm talking about, Zuma? And everybody asked for a copy of it. And I don't know if you have a copy of it here. Maybe you can share it. Jimmy Twyman and you're voicing the words, and it's his music in the background. And he played it yesterday. Wednesday, I go to a Zoom class. Regis is there. Rico is there. A few people. Corinne is there from our group, and he played it, and everybody wanted a copy. If you have a copy of it, I would love to have you put it up here, maybe. It was so beautiful, absolutely so beautiful.
What day was that, Zulma? So he is his daily things? Which one?
Yes, it was workbook lesson 171.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, and I have it.
Okay, put it in the chat. I'd love to have a copy of it. I kind of missed it yesterday.
That is available on YouTube also.
Oh, is it really? Hi, Karen. Good morning. Welcome. That's it from me. Anyone want to share? Zulma, Karen.
Good morning, Dove. Good morning, everybody. I was just listening just now to you, Dove. I can't stay on. I got to jump off, but if I could just share for a minute about, voting. And what came to me was, how we trust and we talk about trust and, with your book, when we, close our eyes and just pick a page, and just let whatever shows up. I was just thinking, well, what if I went into the voting booth and just closed my eyes and just pushed whatever button came to be pushed? Could I trust that? I'm just putting it out there. It's just a thought that came to me. I don't know. I just thought of it as far as trust. Could I trust that? That's all. Thanks.
Oh, Karen, that that makes me laugh. And when you said that, it was like my first reaction is, oh my gosh. And the ego in me is like, oh, I couldn't do something like that. And that's how much attachment there is to that. So that was a great idea. Thank you for saying that. Anyone else?
By the way, Lori, it's good to see you, and you look so beautiful. So good to see you. You look awesome.
Well, I was telling Sharon that's because I never come on here unless I'm dressed, and I'm going to pickleball. That's why I haven't been seeing you, Zulma, because I have pickleball right after this now. But when the weather gets cold, I won't be. And it's nice to see you, Cher. And hello, Lindy.
Hi, Michelle.
Well, I'll make a few more comments then about what you were talking about, Dov, when you said, we think we're voting for climate change. We think we're voting for this person or that person. And it made me think of lesson 25. I do not know what anything is for. And I remember when I first read those beginning lessons, it's like, well, I know what a telephone is for. I know what a chair is for. And the course is saying you don't even know, and that you could actually gain enlightenment from that chair or that table, rather, lesson 28, I think, if you removed all of your preconceptions about it. So when he's saying that, I was like, what? But if we remove all our preconceptions about it, that gets to what we were talking about earlier, that I cannot judge anything, that we think there's a table out there, and we think that we've made a table, or someone made that table out of wood or glass or whatever they made it out of. And when we let go and say, oh, well, yeah, those are just all images, objects from one ego mind or whatever, that's how we would gain enlightenment. Not it. And that is so obscure that actually that never even came to me until just now. That thought of, oh, removing all preconceptions, there's no table out there. So you can gain enlightenment when you actually know there's no table out there. There's nothing out there. And when I keep reminding myself of that, even though I don't get it, the ego mind is not going to get that. It's just this intuitive experience. It just happens. And someone asked me in our course meeting the other day, I said something about, it took me 5 years of doing the workbook lessons before I understood lesson 1. Nothing I see means anything. And she said, well, how did you understand that? And I said, well, I still really didn't understand it. I can't logically put it into words. It was just this like, oh, yeah, there's no world. I can't understand anything. And it's still, you can't put it into words, because once you put it into words, you're using the brain, and it's beyond that. So that's all I've got.
Yeah, thank you for that. Somehow I like to drop this in the last minute. Everything is really happening perfectly. We just don't think, the ego doesn't think so. It wants it different. And yet everything is always happening perfectly. He tells you that in A Course in Miracles. What is it you can't accept? Everything here is for you. It's all planned for you. No, I want to vote it my way. You got to laugh, simply. Everything is happening perfectly, whether you believe it or not.
And Zulma, thank you for putting that link there. Now I'm glad I've got that. And when you say everything is happening perfectly, Dov, I think we have to be careful, because it's like, oh yeah, whoever's the best candidate will become president. That's not what that means. And I know you know it. It's not.
No, I didn't say that. I said, no matter what happens, it's perfect. That's what I said.
Yeah. And what I'm pointing out is that most people take it the wrong way. They'll take it where, oh yeah, that means that this candidate's better than the others. And that's not what that means. It means.
Oh, I never said that.
Happening.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you didn't say, yeah. Okay.
In other words, we don't know what anything is for, and yet everything is for us. Everything is for us.
Right, exactly. And there's nothing out there. So like we think a certain outcome is better for us and another outcome's not. But anyway, I'll stop because I know it's 9:30 here. Okay, see you guys.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Dove. Thank you,
God bless.
everyone. Gosh, good morning, everybody.